Oh, hello, stream. As y'all know, this is Raz Williams. I'm here waiting, sending the Discord link to this man's Nicolas Peterson. And we are going to um, get started on this debate here. Alright. I've sent him the link. I've connected to Discord, so ultimately I'm just waiting on our guy here. So I personally have looked up a couple different articles on this topic that got us debating in the first place, which was in regards to gas prices. Nick Pete, hello. Hello, are you in the Discord? Can you hear me? Hello?
I don't know. I think I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I
I
think you're
see
coming
you
through on
though,
our end
so
too.
I can't see you though, so I don't know if you want to see me. Not much to look at, but
It doesn't make that big of a difference to me either way. Um,
all right.
so yeah. Anyways,
If
feel
wait, I just want to say one thing. Andrew
yeah.
Larson, if you're listening, this is what it's like to not be a coward. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so to provide context, we started this conversation in terms of the debate due to a conversation on Facebook with Andrew Larson on my brother Daniel's page. And did you want to talk about that topic, or did you want to talk
We
about
can
something
talk.
else?
We can talk about whatever you want. I don't care.
Well, because ultimately, the thing I always noticed was you were attributing gas prices to policies that Biden himself has passed. And I'm notoriously myself not necessarily a Biden supporter, I'm a critic. But ultimately, I don't see how that's related in any way.
Okay. Well, one thing I want to clarify with that position is I think no matter what, if or Trump or if Biden were in office, I think gas prices are going to go up anyways, just because we would be coming out of the pandemic and people would be, starting to drive more to work and all that, and that would drive up the demand way up no matter what. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think the gas prices are totally on him. It's more me just kind of using a club against him just because I don't like Biden, but I do think that his policies as far as making it harder to do domestic drilling, shutting down these pipelines and stuff. I don't think that necessarily helps.
Well,
And
I would
when
love it if he actually did any of that. Personally, that my position would be to do those kinds of things, but ultimately, Biden hasn't done anything yet. I mean, if anything, he's blown smoke up his own ass on the topic and said that he's going to do these things, but ultimately, he hasn't done anything that actually would affect anything. At least not
okay,
so far. He hasn't even been president a full year, to be fair.
yeah, I also am a believer that when you just pump money into the system like what we are doing, like we did last year, the you're creating an artificial demand that's going to chase a supply that we don't have. And also, when you artificially continue to depress the economy with all these policies on COVID, I mean that's going to drive up. That's going to have fewer products or fewer more people chasing fewer goods.
So, okay, so that's an interesting question. So when you say pumping money into the economy, do you mean just generally
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
yeah, so what you're saying is a mistake that we've been doing even from last year is that we've been pumping money into people or into the system as you put it, right? And I guess I'm curious as to whether or not what you're referencing is like the COVID initiatives, sending people money so that they don't drown in rent, debt, whatever, etc. Due to a low demand due to the pandemic in and of itself. So, like,
Correct.
like, I guess I don't see how that's related.
Well, last year it was more relevant just because we did not have a vaccine, we did not have the therapeutics, we did not know much about the disease, so it made more sense to spend over $7 trillion on, you know, these rescue packages and all that. But ever since, I don't know, April, when every adult has had the opportunity to get a vaccine, I'm not saying kids, but I'm just saying every adult, we
Mm.
don't need we haven't needed these COVID programs since then. And I understand that they ended, like, what you said, they ended a month ago or something.
Yeah,
Or something.
if we're talking about unemployment benefits.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually did not know that. I'm gonna be honest on that. I did not know that. I
Hmm.
thought they were still doing that. So I'm not gonna lie to you and say that I just knew that. I did not know that. You
Yeah,
know how it is when you listen to
in
this one
theory, there
side.
shouldn't have been a gap. I mean, this is sort of my criticism of Democrats is I criticize them from the left while you're criticizing them from the right. Whereas I'm looking at these Democrats and I'm saying there shouldn't be a gap. There should there, when
A gap.
people need help, you just give them help. So if anything, I would criticize them in the sense of like you're not doing enough, rather than everything you're doing is causing this to spiral further.
Can I ask you what else more would you like them to do?
Honestly, I would probably like frame it in the source of like a universal basic income throughout the pandemic alone. I would probably, at least for the sake of the pandemic, do like a trial run of a national healthcare system, where we provide, well, like more of a public option where like Biden ran on, uh, where people, at least during while we're dealing with this disease, can experience what it's like to just go to the doctor when they need to. Um, and I would do this by taxing the wealthy, taxing the capital gains tax, or increasing the capital gains tax for one, taking money that is being spent internationally and moving it more domestically, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, the only problem I have is when you, like, my dad, he worked for a big corporation. Have you ever heard of Medtronic?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, my dad worked for Medtronic for 25 years or something. And he told me that during the Obama administration, they were like the corporate gains were, or the corporate taxes were just going way up, and they moved their headquarters to Ireland. And now they're talking about doing a global tax. Um, have you heard about that? They're trying to do like this. They're trying to collaborate with these other countries and have, like a global tax, and then domestic companies can't move overseas.
So what it sounds like to me is domestic companies are moving overseas to avoid taxes, and we're just trying to get the money back.
Yeah. I'm wondering, what do you think about this whole, like, global tax idea? So then we disincentivize companies moving overseas.
Yeah, I completely support that. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think we should disincentivize that as much as possible. We should try to keep the money as domestic as possible, in my opinion.
Oh, the
Um,
only. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Like I said, as you can probably tell, I'm more conservative, right leaning. So I'm not a big fan of taxes, or just big corporate tax hikes, because I just think that it's all going to bleed down to the consumer, or it's going to somehow be passed down to the worker via, people raising their prices, and it's going to be passed on to the consumer and all that.
I mean, I can see how that maybe would happen in the long term, but ultimately, a lot of these programs, when they've worked the best, it's a continuous fight. So if we think about like the 1960s and 70s, when the American middle class was at its highest, we taxed the rich heavy. We like very heavy. We had a progressive tax bracket, which means that at the highest level you're taxed the most, at the lowest level you're taxed the least. Think of it like Mario Kart power ups. If you're in first place, you shouldn't necessarily be getting Bullet Bill. which is more the system that we have now, where the top 1% extracted almost 40% of the income from the bottom 50% during COVID itself. We have the opposite system now. We are sucking all the wealth from the the lower and middle classes and putting it in the pockets of people that literally are fine. They're flying to space and shit.
Let me ask you this. How much do you think the top 10% of the pay in net taxes, where they don't get any benefits from the government?
The top 10% of income earners in the country, how much do I think, like, how
Like how
many
much they
total
contribute
taxes?
how much they contribute that to net taxes?
The numbers I've seen were somewhere around like 80%.
Okay. Yeah, I've been under the impression, and don't get me wrong, or don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been under the impression that the top 10% pay almost all in net income tax, meaning they don't get any benefits back from the government. Whereas if you're on the
That's,
bottom end of the spectrum, then
well,
you
first
qualify
off, that's
for.
not true. The government, as it is right now, we do have socialism. If we want to be technical, it's just corporate socialism. We subsidize corporations. We subsidize beef in this country. We subsidize 4.9 billion dollars of Elon Musk's most recent income literally came from government subsidies. Like that is literally our money going straight to their pockets. And not only that, but we're not even talking about the impact these people have on our public infrastructure as well. We're talking about Jeff Bezos, for example. How many roads, how much road deterioration do you think comes from Amazon alone? He should be paying more taxes because he's using public infrastructure more than the average person.
Certainly did not think of it that way. Um, yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't really know how to respond to that. I mean that is a good point. I'll give you that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I don't know. It's just I just feel like high taxes. We're going to get to a point where we're just going to disincentivize people to, pursue innovation, pursue, making products and stuff. Because if you just keep taxing, how is that going to motivate people to want to innovate and create new products, and which will create more employment, more wealth? I don't see how that's going to help. Maybe
Well,
you could.
what I would argue is that socialism itself doesn't necessarily hinder innovation. I mean, if we're looking at the Cold War, the Soviets made it to space before we did. And even when we did, we used tax dollars to do it. We didn't do that via a private corporation. We did it because we wanted to and we believed in it. So I just wouldn't necessarily believe that this narrative that socialism itself like stifles innovation. In fact, I would probably argue giving more people equality of opportunity, which is ultimately what I'm advocating for, would create like more of a platform for more people to be able to contribute in large sense in that way. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like when I was growing up, I don't know about you, but I was fed this whole thing about the American dream, this idea of people being able to, having so much opportunity here that we have excess opportunity. And if you're not getting somewhere, that's your own fault because we have excess opportunity. When in reality, in practice, that's not the way it really turns out. And I'd like to get back to that. I'd like to get to a point where anyone from any income has the same opportunity to get on should they choose that life.
Well, I mean, like I said, or I work in engineering, civil engineering.
Mm-hmm.
I work for a company that my parents did not have anything to do with, did not, create or had, what I'm trying to say is you can make your own opportunities. You just have to go for, where the crowd is going. Like engineering, there's always going to be a need for that and stuff. I just feel like they're trying to pursue these things that aren't going to be paying them well, and then they blame the whole system for it. But it's like, okay, well, are you going for an industry that's going to create opportunities for you?
I
You
mean,
know,
yeah, that definitely could play a role in some areas. I would argue like people who have been training their whole life to be a coal miner, for example, would find themselves in a bit of a pickle here in 2021, where we're automating their jobs away, where we're, um, you know, there's not really going to be a need going forward for that type of income. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would advocate. So what I usually say to myself, right? It's what I believe is that I'm a libertarian socialist, and what that means to me is that I believe that in a socialist government that we all pay into, that's ultimate goal is to expand one's individual liberty at all costs. Um, and so the way I view it is like uh, you want to create systems where people can do what they want and people can do what they choose to like enjoy and do that to contribute to the world, if that makes sense.
Shut up. Sorry, that's my dog.
Oh,
Um,
you're fine.
yeah. Can you repeat just that last part that you said? My dog was distracting me.
No worries. I was just saying, like, from the way I
Shut
view
up.
politics in the world, like, I think we should pay into a state in order to expound one's individual liberties. That should be the state's sole purpose, is for every individual to have more power as the state exists, right, and not
You know,
less. Um,
it
and then,
sounds. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
So it sounds to me. You said earlier that you want everyone equal opportunity, right?
Uh, Equality of opportunity is how I phrase it. Yeah,
Equality of opportunity. Okay,
right.
yeah, that's fair. And I like to think I believe that too. I think everyone should have equality of opportunity. But
Mm-hmm.
the impression that I'm getting from this government and that I'm getting from the left side of the aisle is that they want equality of outcome. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I don't necessarily see it that way. You know, if any, I don't necessarily agree that like seeking equity, for example, is the same this thing as seeking equality of outcome. Um,
Definitely.
you know, I think there's certain forces that push down others in this country, and that equalizing those forces doesn't necessarily hinder upon anyone's else's opportunities. I think we can equalize this without necessarily hurting other people.
It's fair. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I do apologize. I'm not really good at thinking on the spot, so I apologize for stuttering. But
Oh, you're totally fine. You've been pretty clear.
yeah. So I wanted to switch. So can I switch topics? If that's okay. I just wanted
Absolutely.
to ask you a question. So where do you exactly? So when you say you're a libertarian socialist, you say you're not a big fan of the current administration, or as big of a fan as you could be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what kind of are you more like? Are you more to the left of that, or
Definitely.
are you? So you're like more on you're like the Bernie Sanders type wing.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer Bernie Sanders, but even to me, like, Bernie Sanders
Okay.
doesn't go far enough. So it's like,
Bernie Sanders does not go far. Wow.
for
Okay.
me, yeah.
I'm just gonna say that's pretty far.
Yeah,
Not no judging, no judging.
I would call myself a revisionist Marxist. So a lot of my ideas follow along the lines of like Das Kapital, Karl Marx, Communist Manifesto, without going full communist. I'm not a communist. Like I said, a libertarian socialist. But it's like we're splitting hairs at this point. You know.
Sure. No, I understand. I'm just trying to get where exactly you are on the political spectrum. Shut up. Um, dog just whining. Um, so maybe I'll tell you where I'm at. But you told me where you're at. Or I'll tell you where I'm at. I'm obviously on the right side of the aisle.
Yeah.
I wasn't the biggest fan of the Trump administration. I mean, I liked what he did as far as policy and stuff. I do like the deregulations. I do like the, tax cuts. I do like, you know, the foreign policy and all that. I'm also not on this big like QAnon and people storming the Capitol
Right.
and this
Right.
election was stolen and all that. Like I'm not on that side, but also I wasn't a big fan of all the government spending that the Trump administration did. So I mean, you could say I was more to the right than the administration, but as far as
Mm.
the rhetoric, definitely not as far right. So that's just, I'm just giving you a little brief
No, yeah,
uh,
I think
lesson of where.
that's a pretty common perspective from what I've seen of Republicans. I mean, not.
Yeah,
I think when we talk about QAnon and all that, even them, they're sort of very vocal minority. Um, but
yeah,
I feel like a lot of right wingers ultimately share your sentiment, where it's like, uh, you could go without the tweets, but at the same time, if we're looking policy wise, Trump did everything Bush was trying to do in 8 years in four, minus what, give or take one or two things.
that's true.
So yeah,
Um,
my mom, for example, she's a Trump supporter herself, and she would make that argument as well.
your mom's a Trump supporter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, oh. How did you exactly come to this uh sort of Marxist or very left leaning point of view? If your mother was different, you just kind of.
Um, well, I, I don't know really. I started, I guess, it probably began when I left Christianity. Ultimately,
Okay.
probably
Okay.
12, 13, 14, something odd years ago. Um, and upon
Okay.
leaving the church, I started to reevaluate a lot of ideas that I had previous to
Okay.
that. Um, and from there, the biggest probably transition for me, where I started to get deep into politics, was I went to college at a music school for hip hop. And ultimately,
Okay.
when you're learning about hip hop, you're learning about revolutionary music in black
Oh.
culture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately, uh, through the learning of hip hop and the learning about the
Shut
diaspora
up.
of African slaves and stuff like that, that sort of led me to
Okay.
one place to another. Um,
That's fair.
yeah,
You ever listen to any rock music? Shut up.
a little bit. I listen to a lot of System of a Down.
You ever listen to Rage Against the Machine?
A little bit.
I showed Andrew Larson one of their songs, and I was surprised he had never heard any of their songs before. So I was like, wow, dude, this is dude, they were writing songs that were so relevant to 2020. It was crazy.
Oh, definitely. They had very what's it called?
The
Occupy
song,
Wall Street energy.
yeah, and then what was that other song? It was called "Killing in the Name." I thought
Mm.
that was when I first heard that song. I was like, this was written last year, but it was written in 1992 after Rodney King happened. I was like, holy wow!
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
it sounded so relevant to last year. But I was like, the sad part is I found out it was written in 1992, almost 30 years ago.
Right.
So I was just wondering if you ever listened to them, because I was like, a lot of revolutionaries love Rage.
Yeah, I love me some Rage. I'm a big fan of
And
his interviews as well.
yeah, and even as a conservative, I mean, I know they do not like the conservatives or the Republicans, but I got to admit, I do listen to their music a lot just because I love the guitar
I
part and
mean,
all
they
that.
bang. Here's a take I heard very recently is, I'm curious to hear your opinion about this.
Sure.
Right wing art isn't very good. like,
Well,
it's.
what does that mean?
I mean, inherently, the ideas that come with right wing philosophy, conservatism, keeping things the same, maintaining the status quo, aren't like. I don't want to party to that.
No,
like,
no. I mean, it's not definitely one side of the aisle. Definitely comes with more of a potential for deeper, art, like what you said, and
yeah.
stuff like that. No, I definitely hear what you're saying. So, I just want to ask, so you live in, so you stay in St. Paul then?
Yep.
Nice. I live in Minneapolis. That's another thing that a lot, right winger myself, but I love the city. I love the diversity, the culture to it, which
Mm-hmm.
is something that not a lot of my friends would think, because a lot of my friends and I, they're all in the suburbs and all that, and
Right.
rural and all that. But Yeah, I stay in Minneapolis.
No,
I like Minneapolis for better or worse.
for better for no, I get that. I love the Twin Cities. I've been city hopping in the last couple of years quite a bit, just kind of exploring, and still no place like it. It's a very unique environment. I've grown up in St. Paul long enough to like have that sort of internalized beef with Minneapolis, but
Sure.
um, but other than that, like if it's about the cities or not, then I'm gonna go back to cities in any case.
Yeah, no, I can't do rural areas, dude. I would die of boredom, and yeah, just can't do it.
Right.
It's just funny because everyone asks me, they're like, "Why are in the world are you in Minneapolis?" Because all you ever do is complain about it. I'm like, well, I love the city. I mean, I love the city at the same time. Like it,
Right.
I don't know. It's just it's so easy for someone to trap me into that.
Right. 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 Yeah.
So, yeah. Is there anything else you want to ask me,
Um.
or is there something else you want to ask me?
Nothing off the top. I mean, I know you got a Wolves game, but yeah. I mean,
What time is it now? Oh, we still got time. If there's a topic, I know you wanted to talk, and so if there's any other topic you wanted to talk about, I'm happy to talk about it.
well, curious since we're here. What are
Sure.
your thoughts on the new infrastructure bill and all Joe Manchin and such?
Well, I, God, I hate to disappoint you, but I just don't know much about the infrastructure bill. Shut up. Um, I I do not think that we need to spend that much money on our infrastructure because I just don't
Hmm.
seem to think that we. I could be wrong though. I'm not gonna say I'm educated on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just under that impression. It's also I listen to right wing media. This is what they say,
Right.
and I just kind of just assume that what they're saying is correct. So I'm not gonna lie with you on that one. What do you think?
Um. Well, for me personally, coming from the Twin Cities, I think infrastructure is of vital importance. I mean, how long have you been living in Minneapolis for? If you don't mind
Uh,
me asking.
28, 2018. I moved here in 2018. I
Gotcha.
lived in Mankato for a couple of years before that. So
No worries. Yeah. So I distinctly remember when the 35W bridge collapsed.
oh yeah.
Like that in my memory is like yesterday. We had our valedictorian of our school at the time. His father had passed away during that, saving his life. Like it's kind of
Oh
crazy.
really?
It's kind of wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
And from there, I have a background where I ended up in a plumbers union for a little under a year. Wasn't really for me, but I did learn a lot, especially about the infrastructure of our country and our cities in particular, the Twin Cities in particular. And Minneapolis alone needed a sewer. Our sewers redone in 1960. Um,
Really?
yeah, so we're at the point
Wow.
now where we're about 60 to 70, almost inching on 70 years overdue on vital infrastructure that we use to live every day. And if people knew this, they'd be angry.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I did not know that. I mean, hey, if it's come time to, I mean, if it comes to it, I mean, it is a bipartisan infrastructure bill, isn't it?
So yeah, that's
Kind of bipartisan. I think there's only like seven. I think there's only like 17 Republicans that are on board with it.
yeah.
So
Well,
I
we only
mean,
needed 10 to be able to
yeah.
say.
I mean, you only need 10. Yeah, because of the filibuster. Yeah. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is what we get for putting a centrist there. Uh, I'm gonna be honest.
Well,
I don't
I got.
necessarily think that the best thing to do is attack this in terms of a bipartisan perspective. And the reason I say that is because the thing that these two parties agree on, right? And again, like I'm, if anything, independent. Like the thing these two parties agree on is corporations rock. Like let's support those against all costs. And if we're looking at the bill itself, not the reconciliation bill, but the infrastructure, the bipartisan one,
Yeah.
that has, for example, public leasing of or private leasing of public roads, for example,
Yep.
um, and like one, a lot of the money is coming from corporations, so it's a lot of new, quote unquote, new money, right? Which is why Republicans were so gung ho about it. But also, what we're literally doing is we as a people are giving our public infrastructure away to people. Like, we're just letting other people profit off of it just because. Which, I don't know, to me seems a little wrong. Like,
Who is profiting off of it?
I think it's specifically ExxonMobil. If I could be.
Are they like a contractor or something?
Yeah, so I believe what it was they put forth it was like a couple million dollars of the bill, and in
Yep.
doing so, that allows them to lease public roads for I think it was like 10 years.
Okay.
And after that, it returns to the public. Oh my God, what just happened? Hold on. Whoa. Sorry, my audio just tweaked out. Can you hear me?
No worries. No worries.
Okay. Here, I'll just do this. Alright, you still hearing me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. But yeah, that's one policy that I definitely don't support on it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of what was the reconciliation bill until very recently, when Biden came back with like a gutted version of it, which more or less took away all the good parts of it. So ultimately, what I keep seeing is centrists who ran on progressive ideas, doubling back on those progressive ideas, and implementing half measures. And what this does is it gives fuel for you guys on the right wing, because when our programs don't work due to either underfunding or mislegislating one way or another, then you get a Republican ad that says, well, what the hell, this isn't doing anything, why the fuck are we spending this money, right? So if anything, I feel like centrists themselves sort of set themselves up for failure in that way. When
What you got to
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm curious.
Well, what you got to remember though too is that Joe Manchin, he is not answerable to the whole the whole country. He's answerable to his constituents in West Virginia. West Virginia is a very, very red state.
Totally. They and he has somewhat of an argument there, but at the same time, if we look at West Virginia polls themselves, most of the things in the infrastructure bill poll highly in West Virginia. I mean, if we're talking about just his electorate, supporting the things that he's doing, they're there. He has support for it, but his donors don't support it, and that's the issue.
But didn't you just? I thought you were talking about the reconciliation bill, that his gutted out version of it that was probably caused by Joe Manchin himself.
Mostly,
that was what you
okay. And Cinema's only vocal opposition was allowing the government to regulate drug prices.
Okay.
Which every other advanced country has currently, but us, by the way.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, she comes from a very purple state.
True.
Yeah, well, I mean, last thing I saw in a poll, I saw a Democratic poll approval rate. She was like in the high 50s. So.
Oh, she's plummeting. She's toast after
She
this.
might be.
Yeah.
She might be. I this was a poll from like a month ago. So
yeah.
I could be wrong.
The most recent poll I saw had her down almost 30 points. Like, she's toast.
One thing you also got to remember about politics too is that it's very reactionary.
100%.
I'm just take that with a grain of salt. I mean, in a year from now, a senator's term is 6 years, so I'm not saying that she will. She's in a good position, obviously, but
true.
Yeah, that's just
my personal opinion of Cinema is I don't even think she's really gonna run for re-election. At this point, I think she's just.
I don't think so. I honestly got that impression too.
Yeah, I don't even think she wants to run again at this point. I think she just wants to be a lobbyist if they let her.
Yeah.
Which I could go be a lobbyist then. Like.
Yeah. Now you can see, and yeah, and what you said earlier about how Republicans are probably going to run on the fact that they passed this $1.75 trillion package, and yet it's not getting out all the effective things that the progressives want. So it's not really doing anything but spending money.
Exactly.
And now you see why actually maybe you already knew this. That's why the party in power always seems to lose control 2 years in,
Yeah.
because it's so easy to criticize and very hard to govern.
No, 100%. Yeah,
So,
and a lot of
but you
these.
probably already knew that, though. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, you sound really, really, really knowledgeable about what you're talking about. So I'm sure you already knew that
Mhm.
trends in politics. So
Of course, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I
Um.
mean, that's ultimately an issue. That's why it keeps feeling like it goes back and forth, and then you get centrists saying, oh, I'm in the middle. But it's like, if I wanted something in the middle, why not go all the way? If I want a Republican, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden because he's almost a Republican. I'm just going to vote for a Republican. You know, if I want a Republican, I'm not going to vote Joe Manchin. I'm just going to vote for the guy who does the things I want him to. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, yeah, I understand. It's just you don't you don't live in West Virginia.
That's
Obviously,
fair.
that's the problem. That if senators were a nationwide thing, you probably wouldn't support the guy. But if your party, or I don't even know if should I even call the Democrats your party, or should I just
I mean, to be fair, I voted for him this last go
okay?
around, so
So
that's fair.
if you
I'm
want
registered as
if
a
you want the
Democrat currently.
Democrats, yeah, if you want the Democrats to stay in power, if you're gonna need those centrists, you're gonna need those purple districts to swing blue. Otherwise, right now they're not really set up for a good
Well,
2022 midterm.
oh, to be honest, I don't know, man. I think okay, so if we're looking at like poll numbers back when Bernie Sanders himself was running, right? He pulled
2020
incredibly
or 2016?
either. He pulled incredibly
Okay,
high with Republicans in both cases. Um, during the
really?
primary. During the primary, absolutely, he was turning heads. He was winning Iowa by landslides when he shouldn't have had no business doing so. Um, yeah, like my opinion is this. Okay, there's a lot of these economic issues that permeate, and a lot of them are related. Like those that struggle in the cities economically uh, like can relate to those that struggle in rural areas economically in some semblance. And so my solution to this, like I said, as a libertarian socialist, is just a broad stroke universal programs that anyone can take advantage of. And ultimately I feel like speaking to human beings about like, hey, no, we're trying to keep it, you're trying to keep you alive, we're trying to put money in your pocket. I think whether you're Republican or Democrat, you can understand that in the most cases. You know, there might be like a 20 to 15% of the Republican Party that's just totally fringe and too far gone. But I think most of you guys are reasonable, to be honest. A lot of leftists think I'm crazy for that, but
Well, the problem with polling too is that if you ask Americans, are you all for, um, childcare, universal childcare? People are going to say, yeah, I like the idea, and then they're going to say, well, you support, raising taxes or whatever, or doing this to achieve that. Then people are going to say, no, I'm not in favor of that.
well, and here let me say this too. The current state of taxes in the U.S. Part of the issue is we don't see anything for it. We don't really see. Okay, in Minnesota we see new roads, but that's a whole another conversation. I'm pretty sure it's a mob racket, but
Oh, you need new roads in Minnesota because it's we need to replace our roads like what, every 2-3 years? Or no, not
every
every
three
2 years,
months.
but
I don't know.
yeah, no, it's bad. Anyway, go ahead.
But what I'm saying is we don't see much for our taxes. If I'm in Norway, if I'm in Denmark, I get free college. I get free paternity leave. I get if I lose my job, I get 80% of my paycheck guaranteed. Like there's and all the while I'm guaranteed health care. I can just go to the doctor. I don't get a bill after the fact. And when you see that, you you're seeing something for your money. You know what I mean? Like you're not just paying taxes just to pay taxes. Like I understand an arbitrary increase in taxes, like being opposed to that. Like fuck no, I don't want you to just take more of my money just to what? Like bomb the Middle East more? No, like fuck off. But if that money lifts more homeless people off the street and I can walk down the street of St. Paul at night without having to like worry about my safety, lit. Like that to me
Yeah.
is I'm seeing something for my money, and
Well,
I
haven't
don't
we
I don't worry.
also Well, haven't we also spent the last, like, what, 70 years since the 60s or whatever, spending like $22 trillion, I think, on the war on poverty?
Uh, I don't know.
Uh, that's that's what I've
guess I
read,
don't know
and
that.
I'm just saying that just throwing money at a problem is, you also have to incentivize people to do good things with the money.
Sure.
Um, you can't just throw money at the problem. But obviously,
No,
I
I
understand what
guess
you're
what I'm
saying.
arguing is you throw, like, if we're talking homeless, you throw houses at the problem, for example. Like, we have so many vacant houses in the U.S. Take them over, give them to homeless people. I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
Like,
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how many new houses we're building outside the Twin Cities area.
absolutely. Inside the Twin Cities, West St. Paul, where I grew up, they just did what was it, like 200 or 20 or $30 million new complex. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, we haven't updated our side roads in like freaking 4 or 5 years, so they're just shit. And it's like, it's like
Well,
okay,
that's a
but we need
private
all these people
contractor.
though. You
It's
know,
a private contract, private developer and stuff,
of
doing
course.
that.
But
But
it's still the city that allows them to do that. You know what I mean? Like the city
well,
has
you
a
want
semblance
to
of power, but of course the city is incentivized to bring in more people because they bring in more money,
well, you need,
and more affluent people are more likely to keep them voted in.
you
So
also need people to pay for the local taxes too. You need people to move in, and if that means that private developers are going to develop all these things that people are going to rent out or buy, that's a good thing.
here's the thing: it's a good thing if if what we're doing isn't like gentrifying our neighborhood.
What do you
Like,
mean? What do you mean?
I mean, like this: bringing new people to a neighborhood isn't always good for that neighborhood necessarily, or at least its inhabitants. Ultimately,
Yeah.
what that can do is it raises the median income so high that it becomes impossible for the people who have traditionally lived in that neighborhood to continue to live in that neighborhood. Thus pushing them out of the place they lived their whole life. It's um, yeah,
You mean making it more expensive?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
that's an interesting take. I can see that. Um, Also, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you go where the money goes, or you incentivize, what you're, and that's just the hard truth, I guess. I don't
yeah.
really know how else to say on that.
I mean, that's capitalism. Ultimately, it comes down to the fact that in this country we value the capital more than the human.
Yeah, I mean, I am a firm believer. I think capitalism has raised more people out of poverty than in poverty. The middle class,
I think that'd be a
the
tough
upper
thing to
middle class.
calculate.
Sorry, what?
I think that'd be a tough thing to calculate.
Sure, yeah, no, I when I think about the practicality of it, I just think that it raises people more out of poverty than
Like
in poverty, I
but
guess.
like as opposed to what? Like as opposed to like theocratic serfdom or like you know what I mean? Like what we had before this was a monarchy. So like sure, capitalism lifts more
You
people out of
mean you
poverty
mean
than
like
a fucking
here?
monarchy.
You mean like here in the North? What do you mean monarchy? Oh, you mean like Britain?
Like yeah, like America was founded, we left a monarchy. We
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
what I
Okay, I
mean?
see what you're
So
saying.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. Yep, that makes sense.
like
Yep.
I agree in the sense that like yeah, of course capitalism lifts people more people out of poverty than like what we had, of course. Um,
Yeah. Like I said, man, a lot of people in suburbia and rural areas, they don't think like that, and you need those people, purple voters, to win over. A lot of people don't think like, people who live in St. Paul or in my district. I live in Ilhan Omar's district, and that is like D plus 50.
yeah. I used to live
So
over there in the Northeast.
I live in Loring Park.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I used to
so
live right over that way as well.
I don't even bother to vote. I vote in the primaries in the elections. I don't even because I vote for the Democrat in the primaries, even though I'm not even a Democrat. Like last election, I voted against. Uh, I voted for Omar's opponent.
Hmm.
So that's what I do as far as House of Representatives and stuff. At the end, that's the problem with being a conservative in the city, man. You vote for the primary. You vote for the person you think is going to be the least. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a little counterintuitive to a degree.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I like living down in the city. I like to be able to go to T-Wolves games. I like to be able
Mhm.
to go out and stuff. It's just weird, man. It's a messed up situation for me. My parents are like, "Why the hell are you in Minneapolis? Like, all you do is complain about it." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "I love it, but I hate it." So
Oh, I just got
anyway,
a follower. Shout out Winston Targaryen. Thanks for the follow. I was like, what is that
um,
noise? I haven't heard that in a while.
one last subject I wanted to ask you about
Absolutely.
before I have to jet. Um, so I want to ask you about. So you live in St. Paul.
Hmm.
Are you planning on voting in the local election? Or wait, do you guys even have a local election next week?
Yeah, yeah.
So
We're doing
who's on the
mayor, I
ballot?
believe.
Mayor. Okay. What's your
Uh,
opinion on Melvin Carter?
um, well, I voted for him, continually.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
he, caveat, my family knows him.
Really? Okay.
He is from the neighborhood my family is from. They all went to like high school, Central High School. Um,
Okay.
on the one hand, I enjoy having someone from that neighborhood in that position, and I support
Yep.
all he's done in terms of, he didn't increase the number of police in St. Paul after last year, which I appreciate. But there's been certain things that I definitely am not a fan of as well.
Like, could you
Um,
name just one thing?
like, let's see. I'm trying to think specifically. I didn't enjoy his commentary on the looting, quote unquote, looting and rioting of the George Floyd protests in St. Paul. He made comments basically suggesting that he sent police to round out people, and I think his literal comment was, "No one we arrested last night was from Minnesota." Which, like, fuck off. No way. I refuse to believe that they arrested a shit ton of people protesting in St. Paul and none of them were from Minnesota. Get the fuck out of here. So I think he plays into certain media narratives, which I'm not a fan of. But in terms of what he's done, like physically, uh, I don't really have any qualms. I wish he'd push harder for legalization, but, you know, can't have everything.
Yeah. Well, I'm voting in obviously in Minneapolis. We're voting
Mm-hmm.
on this whole policing amendment and rent control
Right,
and
right,
who
right,
the
right.
fucking mayor's going to be. Obviously, I hate to say it, but I'm going to be voting for Jacob Fry.
Interesting.
Um, I think he is. I do think that the Minneapolis Police Department is. I've met a lot of Minneapolis police officers in
Uh-huh.
the city, and I'm pro police, but I do understand why people think that there is a toxic environment within the MPD because a lot of them are kind of assholes.
Well, yeah,
Um,
there without a doubt is. I mean, well,
but I don't.
I could
But I
speak
also don't think all of them.
anecdotally if you'd like.
But hold on just one second,
Yeah, go
Mingy.
ahead.
But I also don't think. I mean, I've also met a lot of police officers that are generally, very nice and
Sure.
engaging and stuff. But so we're voting on, obviously the police amendment and the rent stabilization, and
Mm-hmm.
to adapt the government structure of St. Paul.
Yep.
Uh, you're aware of that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be
What
voting.
what was it
Yes, I
again?
want to. Basically, it just gives the mayor more power and city council less power, which is obviously what I want because the city council has lost their fucking minds.
Yeah, city councils. Well, yeah, I'm not a big fan of them in general, to be
Yeah.
honest.
So I'm voting for Jacob Fry. Voting, obviously, I'm more right leaning, so it's no surprise to you that I do not want to get rid of the police department, or
Yeah.
I don't want to replace it with a Department of Public Safety or whatever the hell they are proposing. Um, and then rent
Hmm.
stabilization. Honestly, I could see. I can maybe see myself voting yes on that,
Yeah.
just because we're in trying times right now.
Yeah. Very
And
much so.
also just the rent prices down here are just
Are
crazy.
absurd. Like that's literally
Yeah,
an issue. That
yeah.
I think everyone living in Minneapolis can agree on that one. If you're
Anyway,
not a
you go ahead
landlord.
with your story. You can go with your story now.
Oh no, what I was gonna say is anecdotally, my my eldest cousin's wife is or was, to be fair, an MPD officer.
Yep.
And so I know anecdotally that it took her quite a while actually to realize that she was sort of contributing to an environment of violence in a way. And I don't want to put too many words in her mouth, but throughout the conversations we would often have, obviously me being pro BLM and obviously her being pro police, she ultimately decided to have to leave the force because it got to the point where a specific situation happened where her sergeant was getting angry with her because she didn't like rough up a homeless person specifically.
Yeah.
And he wasn't harming anyone. He was just on the bench. And she called me this day and gave me this whole rundown of, why she left, why she's, doing more of campus PD type stuff now, and why ultimately she couldn't find herself, like, feeling like good about being part of that environment. And especially when you talk about like the blue code of conduct or whatever the hell, no job should work that way. I work at the airport. I'm an air marshaller. I
Okay.
marshal an aircraft. Okay. If I fuck up, if I marshal an aircraft and I crash that plane into the MSP airport, hypothetically, uh, everyone's gonna snitch on me. Everybody and their mom is that he did it. That's the guy. It's his fault. He caused the destruction. He caused the pain. He hurt people potentially, right? Um, and ultimately, I don't think that's an issue. I think that's fair. So to have a code of conduct where if somebody steps like calls out bad behavior and they're wrong for that, not only is one that's something I recognize from living in a neighborhood that's gang infested. That's gang behavior, but two, it's inconducive to a positive work environment. You can't like if you are a quote unquote good cop, you have to shut up a lot in order to maintain that position. Um, and I'm sure you see a lot. So at what point is you seeing a lot and not being able to speak on it? At what point are you still a quote unquote good cop? You see what I'm saying? You're just as complicit ultimately over time as the
Well,
people doing the actual harm.
this is one thing that Andrew Larson always brings up to me is the fact that there's all these cops that have all these complaints and stuff against them.
Totally.
I've also, on the other hand, have gone on walks. I've seen a lot of interactions with people in police, and turns out when someone interacts with a police officer, they're not having the best of days, and obviously people are kind of going to be a little bit more snippy and be a little bit more impossible to deal with, and they're probably going to end up filing a.
Yeah,
I just feel
but
like
people
police
don't
officers are
treat
more.
firefighters that way. You know what I mean? Like they're a public servant. Like they're treated the way that they have like positioned themselves to be treated. Like
But firefighters aren't in an authority though to get somebody for a law break. Like firefighters go out and they put out fires. Like, you know what I mean? Law enforcement enforces the law.
I mean, when they
And
see
a lot of
fit.
people don't like it when they say, "Well, no, I wasn't breaking the law" or whatever. It's like you're not gonna wrestle a firefighter and say, "Hey, don't put the fire out in my house." You know what I mean?
I mean,
I don't know.
sure, that's fair.
Um. Anyway, to get back to what I was gonna ask you. What do you think? Obviously, I mean, you don't live in Minneapolis, but I assume you probably have an opinion on the whole police amendment. What do you think on that?
Say that again. Say that one more time.
So obviously, you live in St. Paul. You don't live in Minneapolis, but I assume you probably have an opinion on the whole police amendment charter thing.
I'm honestly haven't read up on it very much.
I was just gonna see what are your thoughts on it.
Yeah,
Like, do you
like
support?
is that the one where they're increasing the like amount of police or something like that?
They would
Or
get
oh no,
rid
that was
of the
where
charter.
they rebrand the police, right? Like they pull a Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook, like oh shit, we got bad PR, we got to rebrand this, like.
Pretty much, yeah. No, pretty much. Yep.
um. So what I would
Like this
support
whole
is
healthcare social worker approach. You know what I mean?
that I do support. I
You
think
do
so
support that, okay?
far, yeah. If you look at an example like Denver, Denver has been implementing this for I think a year and a half now, and they've seen quite a few positive results of referring 20% of all their calls in the Denver metropolitan area to social workers. And ultimately, this has led to a stark decrease in gun violence. It's made things safer for cops. It's made things safer for people dealing with cops and people with mental health issues who probably shouldn't have a high-strung cop walk into their
Okay.
house. Like,
Okay. So you, like I said, I don't know. This is the problem I have with the amendment is I just don't have any faith that that the city council is going to actually put actual police officers on the street. I think since they get rid of the charter amendment, they're going to try to get rid of as much law enforcement presence as possible just to appease a small group of people. That's what I think. Shouldn't
um,
there be at least some police officers on the street?
uh, okay, to be clear, I'm not a, like, no police leftist. Like, I'm not an anarchist in that way.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
I think some role of policing needs to exist, right? I just don't necessarily oppose a reimagining of that role. Um,
Sure.
I just I do, I how do you put it? I come at this with scrutiny. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just gonna,
Hmm.
oh, this is clearly better because you suggested an alternative. I'd like to see, like, the specifics, um,
Yeah.
in regards to why that is.
Nope.
Because, yeah, I mean, because as it currently stands, I don't see a situation where you can have a good person be a cop, wholeheartedly. And what I mean by that is like, again, my older cousin's wife, she's a great person, great human being. Um, but the thing she even allowed to pass, you know what I mean? And seeing something and having to let that go, like, that inherently is morally incorrect. I think you put what would be good cops in a bad, like, situation because they can't necessarily even really improve their system from the inside, right? Like, we have to do this from the outside because it's not gonna fix itself internally. Um,
That has always been a fair position for me. I do think you can't have the police just police the police. You know what I mean?
exactly. Who police the
Yeah.
police? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, because that I mean that doesn't how the hell is that? You need to bring in some outside forces.
Yeah, well,
Or
right,
you need
exactly.
yeah.
So, like, I don't know
I
if that
just
would look like a city council necessarily, but a community oversight board, I don't think that's a necessarily bad idea.
and this is one of those things where if it passes, I hope I'm wrong. I don't think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be very bad. I think it's going to disincentivize people making good decisions, individual decisions. But if I'm wrong, I love this city and I don't want this city to suffer any more than it has.
Sure, I think on that we agree.
So, yeah. And um yeah, and I like I said, man, I love Minneapolis. I absolutely I love the diversity down
Hmm.
here. I love the environment. I love the city lights. I love the city nightlife. I love being able to be close and stuff. So I want to be down here and stuff, but I also it's getting so hard for me to want to stay here.
I mean, I can understand it. Just, I mean, when I was when I was in Minneapolis, I was surrounded by leftists. I was honestly some of
You
my
lived in
friends.
Minneapolis?
Yeah, for while I was in
Okay.
college,
Oh,
for a
okay.
year, and
Oh, sure.
I didn't like it. But
Yeah.
I'm from St. Paul, so I didn't like it not for the same
Yeah.
reasons you didn't like it, but I do
Yeah.
understand. Like, I was surrounded. Everyone around me during that time period in my life was and still is to the left of me. So I always found that really
Sure.
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, people like last year during the whole summer of 2020, obviously, it was a very tumultuous time. I'd be walking downtown and I think we had one night where people just started looting a Target because of
Hmm.
a false report of some guy who got shot by the police, but he didn't really actually get shot. He killed himself.
Right.
That
Yeah, I
was the
think I remember
environment that
something
we
like that.
created for, yeah. And
Have you? I'm
people didn't even
curious.
question, the report. They just went right to, oh my God, let's all
Yeah,
throw our arms
there
up.
was a ton of lies. I was definitely, like, in the
Yeah.
front of that coverage.
Anyway, go ahead.
But no, I
Sorry.
was gonna say, have you heard of the Boogaloo Boys? And if so, like, what is your opinion?
So who now?
The Boogaloo Boys. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh yeah, I've heard about them, and they were the people that think they came up during the Floyd protest.
Yeah, they were the ones lighting shit
Some
on
guy
fire.
from Texas or something.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
So I
Yep, I've
think
heard of him.
so. That was a situation where, like I was saying about Melvin Carter, right? When he was saying that all these people were coming from out of state and burning our town, etc. Right?
Yep.
They there were people from out of town. I mean, at least I saw people from out of town, literally. But where I think he's doing too much is saying that like all the people were from out of town, because that doesn't deal with the issue we have here at home, which is an inherent disagreement, right? Which is a very Minnesota way to handle that, if you think about it. Like, let's avoid this problem. But ultimately, when I look at a lot of like the looting and the destruction, and I know a lot of these right wing groups, like I follow a lot of the hyper radical ones, right? The ones you might even call on the fringe, and a lot of boogaloos like to phrase themselves like they like to like assimilate with like Black Lives Matter protests and leftist protests and leftist areas, and their ideology is to foment civil war. That's their whole fucking thing. So it's not even about like left and right to these people. It's about burning shit. So, you know what I mean?
I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I'm not gonna name anybody, but I do have some friends who seem, they're not necessarily like acting on it, but they do seem to entertain the idea. So I'm not going to sit and pretend like that's not a problem, because it is.
Absolutely, that's an issue.
Especially after the 2020 election.
Right.
Because I never got on board with this whole voter fraud and irregularity just nonsense. I never got on that. So.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I don't think like the people in Trump's immediate circle believe that shit anyway. Like
they not. Well, anytime any side loses, they're gonna think they were cheated. So
yeah, I mean, so to be fair, to be completely fair to y'all, like I've been calling out leftists for this too, where leftists are like, oh yeah, we were so like nice. Like, no, you fucking weren't. Like, no one was cordial when Trump was elected as president. Get the fuck out of here.
And no one was cordial when Biden was elected. That's the problem with American politics. I'm not going to sit and pretend like that's actually.
Yeah.
It's just one way. And I was way wrong when I found out Biden got elected. I just thought, as a right winger, I was like, there's not going to be any riots or violence, because we're not violent, all that. And then what happened in January?
Oh, America's quite violent.
Maybe I was a little wrong here.
No, what I think is interesting is that looking at the January 6th riots from like a leftist perspective, we were all watching this like live, and we were like, okay, here comes the tear gas, bro. They're about to beat their ass. Watch. And then they're marching up the stairs. No one's doing anything. And we're like,
well,
where's the fucking tear gas?
Fair. We did have a police station burned and $500 million in property damage here in the city. So I don't think that's exactly
to be
fair,
but let's also be fair. Like, the circumstances with which the 5th precinct actually, was it 5th or 3rd? Whatever that precinct, the 3rd precinct,
Yep.
The circumstances with which it burned were very sketchy. Like, literally, the first people in that building, if you watch the live streams, the first people in that building were already talking about gas piping being split open.
Yeah,
so it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, here are these cops that dip out, they bust the pipes, and then they're like, oh, they burned our precinct, look what happened. It's like, come on now. Like,
I don't know. I don't know if that's true. That could be true. I'm not saying that what you're saying is not true, but if I would be happy to look into that, though. And honestly, after this discussion,
a unicorn riot might still have the footage if you're.
I would be happy to add you on Facebook, though, and maybe if you find something like that, you could send it to me.
Definitely.
But yeah, no, I mean, yeah. I don't know, man. It's just so screwed up. Everything's just so screwed up.
It is indeed, but I mean, hey, that's why we have these conversations, you know.
And by the way, when I comment on that Daniel thing, mostly I get annoyed by Drew, because he sends me some stupid link and then he runs away, and I just think that's completely cowardice.
Yeah,
and then yesterday we were at the casino.
To be fair, Drew doesn't necessarily know. He's not. How do you put it? He is well versed in a centrist point of view. That's what I'll say about Drew.
Last night we were at the casino. I was like, dude, we're gonna talk about this. We were talking about some certain topic, and I was like giving him all these points and stuff, and he was just like, whoa, oh well. Like he doesn't talk in person. Like,
No, literally,
hey, Eric.
I have gone back and forth with Drew for years. Anytime there's a Democratic primary, you will see me and Drew go back and forth, 1,000%.
Yeah. No, I understand that. He was not necessarily on the Bernie ship. I
No,
don't think.
he's tripping.
Yeah. Anyway,
he would say things that he believes in, and they were all in Bernie's platform. And then like I would get him to admit that, and then I'd be like, "So Bernie, right?" And he'd be like, "No, Biden." And I'd be like, "Oh God."
well, I think also Drew, he seems to think. I think he understands also that centrist view that if you want to win over an election, you got to win over the centrists.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think that's the
kind of why he
philosophy,
thinks
right?
that way.
Well,
I could be wrong that he thinks that way, but
I
that's
could tell
just
you
my
exactly
opinion.
why he thinks that way. And not to call you out, Drew. It's MSNBC and CNN. If you
Mm.
watch any of those, it's kind of like how with certain right wing talking points, you can literally pick it up off of Tucker Carlson the night before. Like, it's the same thing with
Fucker
centrism.
Carlson.
Yeah,
Fucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, but yeah, like I think we have an issue with like diversity of thought in terms of like having an individual perspective. Like when I look at media online, I don't just believe it. Like it's like I don't inherently believe it because it's online or because it like tickles my fancy in some kind of fucking way. Like if anything,
Sure.
would be more sketched out because it sounds like too good, you know.
Sure.
So I just think we need to like learn to develop a healthy level of scrutiny, and I don't know that like the human brain has evolved to that point where it's necessary. Like we just kind of click shit and keep going, you know.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about Andrew. He's way more sympathetic to your guys' side than he is to the centrist point of view or the Joe Manchin wing of the party.
Well, yeah, I mean, because to be fair, Joe Manchin is a Republican.
I don't even know why he calls himself a Democrat. He does not support anything a Democrat. I don't even know why he even calls him. I mean, maybe he's trying to hold on to some, I don't know, childhood thing.
I don't know.
I could be wrong.
I mean, at least lately, it seems he's been a little more honest about that. He's been talking with his aides about becoming like an independent or whatever the hell. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't think you really can be a Democrat and purport the things he purports or get in the way of Biden's agenda or like even this whole infrastructure thing. He's like whining about the price tag, but when progressives first suggested this, it was a $6 trillion over the course of 10 years plan. It was like an all-encompassing thing. And then he was like, no, I think 4 trillion is a good number, right? And then the last couple of weeks we've been talking about 3.5 trillion, right? And he's been holding that up
You mean the reconciliation bill?
I mean the reconciliation bill, right?
Yeah.
And the reason we call it that is because the bipartisan infrastructure is such a giveaway that in order to actually like do something, like where people can recognize it in their lives, right? Because that's what Democrats need to do. If we're gonna talk about like what they need to do is like you need to change people's lives. Republicans too. You need to tangibly like improve their lives and be like, yeah, that's mine. That's one thing Trump did well is like when he did a policy like the tax cuts, for example, he put his fucking name on it. And if we're talking about like where Trump's quote unquote like smarts is, right? It's in marketing. Ultimately, he's like that's where all his money is. That's where his campaign came from. He's a marketing. I'd fall short of genius.
Sure.
You know, he's good at that.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying the Democrats need to learn that.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like my friends just came
No
over,
worries.
so I might have to step out, but I'd be happy though in the future to
Hop on
have
again.
more discussions like this. I honestly I really enjoyed this.
Sure.
You really educated me on a lot of things that I hadn't actually thought about.
Awesome, man.
So I appreciate
you coming on, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and by the way, like I said, I'm not a coward, Drew.
You did man up. You did come and do this. I was worried for a little while.
But the problem last night is I didn't get home till like
Late.
4 in the morning, and then I didn't wake up till like 4 in the afternoon. So I apologize for that.
No, you're good, brother.
So,
it's all good.
But hey, like I said, send me a friend request. I'd
For
be
sure.
happy to. I don't share much on Facebook. I'm more of a commenter.
Hmm.
But yeah. If you're ever down for another discussion like this, maybe on a major issue of the moment, just let me know.
For sure. Yeah, thanks for coming on,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed this, man. It was really nice to meet you officially, and good luck with everything.
Thanks, you as well. All right, enjoy the game too.
Oh yeah. Have a good night, man.
All right, yep, peace.
Bye.
All right, y'all. So, let's address some of these comments.
You see that on Facebook? No. Some guy on Facebook.
Okay. Bye, Discord. All right. So, yeah, that was Nicolas Peterson. Feel free to follow him on Facebook or whatever if you're on Facebook. If that's something you're interested in doing, do that. Cool. Let's address some of these comments. He mentioned during the debate that he didn't want to get distracted by live chat, so I was trying to avoid getting distracted as well. Maxie said, got him. There was, he did admit to learning quite a bit on this stream, so let's go, Brandon. I don't know who Brandon is, Cottonmouth63, but okay, brother. Socialism has always failed. Marx was a dumbass. Lenin and Stalin were butt buddies. This is a very intellectual take, Cottonmouth63. Go to fucking Denmark and then talk to me. Anyway, more like Carney Sanders. Ayy. You know what it is, Max. Fuck Corona. For real, though, it fucked quite a bit up. You should change my settings on Twitch to save previous streams. Jesus. Do I do that on Twitch? Is that where I do that? Hold on. Twitch.com. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I don't know where I fucking do that. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Oh. Okay. Okay. That's a thing that's happening. What the fuck? How do I turn this? Yo, I think Christian music or something just came on my fucking thing, so I'm sorry. Fuck, no, that's not what I want. Fuck you, Twitch. Fuck off, bro. Okay, settings, here we go. Whatever, dude. I'll figure that out in a second. Chat pause due to scroll. Let's see. You should change your settings. That's a great idea. Another thing. Awesome to see you debate with someone who has different beliefs as you and stay cool and mellow. Gabe Moliere. Hey, Gabe! My guy! Hey! Shout out to Gabe, man. I ain't seen you in a while, bro. I hope life is well. I remember seeing something about you becoming like a pastor or something like that. Freaking congratulations. Real quick, shout out to Mayo Monkey for the follow. Appreciate you, Mayo. But yeah, I was just in the middle of giving a shout out to Gabe. Shout out to Gabe. Right now we're addressing these comments after a debate where I was trying to ignore it, admittedly. So, really understanding and non-offendable. Lit. That is my goal. I mean, ultimately, I'm not out here trying to make enemies. I recognize that like some of my beliefs aren't necessarily fit perfectly into a box of like right wing or left wing, right? So ultimately, I feel like I have to attack these sort of conversations with like a sense of humility and a sense of understanding, and understanding that like we're all coming from a place where there are some that come from a place of bad faith, but for the most part, we want what's best for the country. We might disagree on exactly what that best thing is, but we want what's best, ultimately. So let's talk about how. Actually,
So when you wrapping up, Skinny needs you.
Yeah, I'm wrapping up soon.
Can you text Skinny?
Yeah, I'll holler at Skinny in a second.
Alright.
Alright.
I'll call you in a sec.
I am apparently in demand because Halloween. I gotta go be a sociable person again. But again, I wanted to address these comments because this got quite a bit of engagement on this debate. I honestly would probably declare this a success in general. Another first-time chat from the new follower, Winston Targaryen. First off, fuck with the name, Winston. Fuck with the name, dude. Dude, that's actually kind of a badass name, bro. Winston Targaryen, bro. Like, first off, Winston is a badass, like, first name in and of itself. Like, bitch, I got a last name for a first name. Fuck right off. And then, like, Targaryen? Okay, I see you. But, anyway, what exactly are we debating? We've been all over the place. We started out talking about what initially led us into this, which was which policies of Biden's contributes to gas pricing, the increase of gas pricing and that sort of stuff. And then we kind of like bounced around sort of, socialism and like, taxation, whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, how Democrats are failing us, how they are not, etc. How like Democrats can maybe learn some things from Republicans and of themselves, when it comes to like marketing and etc. stuff like that. Obviously, Republicans could learn a lot from the left wing as well, but yeah, that doesn't mean it couldn't go both ways. And all cops are bastards too. That's what comments have said. ACAB. Basically, we got on to talking about the cops issues, as he's a man from Minneapolis and I'm a person from St. Paul. And so we got to talking about our perspectives on the fuckery that is the Twin Cities in the last 2 years. So we sort of touched on that, touched on Mayor Melvin Carter for one. Been all over the place. Probably going to have a follow-up debate at some point. I'll talk to him behind the scenes, see, if we can figure that out. But yeah, seemed productive, at least so far. Look at this now. This is a first-time chatter as well. Marshall Rocks. I wonder if that's the Marshall I know. That'd be funny. Look at this now. You're a disgusting looking person. Ah. Not a fan of the drip, I see. You know what I'm saying? This is actually like my Halloween fit or whatever. I don't know what the fuck I am, bro. Like I'm like a giraffe or a cheetah or some shit. I don't fucking know. But yeah, hey, fuck you, Marshall Rocks. Anyway. All cops are bastard from Proto Zero. Proto Zero's a first time chatter, but Poggers, they're fucking with the shit. That's a based ass comment, bro. All cops are bastards. Always the mentally ill talking and commenting like this. This is Marshall Rocks. I'm assuming he's talking about me and not Nick Peterson, because this is my platform, so I'm gonna assume that's directed at me. But yeah, I'm mentally ill. Like, nigga, who isn't? Fuck you. Go get checked out. Maybe you are too. You fucking commenting on my Twitch like this. And then fucking Proto Zero hit him with the dunk. Said fucking cry more, you triggered snowflake. Let's see. Dilex. Or dilate? You look subhuman. Well, I mean, to be fair, like, the Founding Fathers probably would have agreed with you, being that I'm biracial. Mulatto literally means less than human, so I'm sure with your white supremacist viewpoint, that fucking makes sense, you fucking loser. Anyway, you up for another debate? I might be up for one if you want. I would be up for a debate at a different time. Winston, you have a badass name, Sir Winston. Am I a black supremacist? No. I would call myself maybe a black nationalist to a degree, but supremacist? Absolutely not. I don't think any one race is inherently better than any other. I also don't think white is a race. So that's a whole fucking hot take in and of itself. Let it play, Max. Hey, I miss you, Max. You my people. I hope you are well and healthy. Marshall Rocks, who is gross. White XX liked. I'm pretty sure he's talking about me. I'm pretty sure I look gross to him. Not sure why, but sure, man. So yeah, anyway, I'm probably gonna split. My brother's been blowing me up, trying to get me to holler at him. So I'm gonna go be a person. Auf Wiedersehen. Love y'all. Please stay up. Please love other humans. Please stay safe. It's fucking Halloween. Please do not drive drunk. Am I mixed? How can you be a black nationalist? Let me tell you what. I'll be honest. I'm a bit of a Trump supporter, so I'm keen to debate the shit out of you. Alright, Winston. Hey, reach out to me on Twitter. Here, I'll put it out. Raz never sleeps. We can plan a timeout. And honestly, this is I just don't really have the time to get into this, but this is an interesting conversation. Alright, cheers. How do you choose which race you're going to be nationalistic for? Well, in and of itself, nationalism is about a country, right? So that's the issue. When I say black nationalism, what I'm talking about is when you're black, you come from a place where you're like, we built this country ultimately, and that perspective is what is known as black nationalism, as opposed to white nationalism, which advocates for an ethno-state. No one who is a black nationalist is out here advocating for a black ethno-state necessarily. If there is, it's an extremely small minority and one that's inconsequential. Ultimately, all we're saying is, if we look at American culture, we look at American music, culture, period. It is taken from black bodies. It has been built up by black people. So, in that sense, yes, I would say I'm a black nationalist, being that I am descended from slaves that helped build this. But yeah, again, white XX lights, I'm definitely in trouble. I gotta go. But trust me, I'm not leaving any debate. I'm always up for a debate. So feel free, like I said to Winston here, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at RazNeverSleeps, and we can plan a day to hash this out. Alrighty.